I saw the email at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and my stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to throw up right there in my home office. The subject line was simple: Victoria's severance package. Not your severance. Not let's talk. Just her name, like I was already a ghost in the company I'd built from nothing. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely click it open. 12 years. I'd given that company 12 years of my life, and they were firing me via email. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came 3 paragraphs down when I saw who was replacing me. It was Jennifer, my best friend since college, my business partner's wife, the woman who'd cried on my shoulder when her marriage was falling apart, the woman I'd hired fresh out of grad school. I closed the laptop and just sat there in the dark for about 20 minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt numb, like someone had reached into my chest and pulled out something essential. When I finally stood up, my legs felt weird, disconnected from my body. I walked downstairs to find my wife Karen in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone while sipping a glass of wine. She looked up at me, and something in my face must have told her everything because her smile faded immediately. "What happened?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just sat down at the kitchen island and stared at the marble countertop, at the reflection of myself looking broken and old. This is the part where I'm supposed to tell you that life had been perfect before that moment. And honestly, it kinda was. We had everything. The house in the suburbs, a 4,200 square foot colonial on Meadowbrook Lane with the wraparound porch Karen had always wanted. The cars. My Mercedes in the driveway, her Range Rover next to it. Our daughter Ashley was 14 and doing great in school. Our son Michael was 11 and played travel soccer. We had the 401k, the college funds, the emergency savings. My credit score was 798. We took vacations to Cabo every other year. Karen was on the HOA board. I was on the board of directors at the country club. We'd made it. That's what I told myself every single morning when I woke up next to Karen and thought about how far we'd come. We were the people other people wanted to be. I'd started CompTech Solutions in 2011 with my business partner, David Chen, in a cramped office space above a Chinese restaurant in downtown Portland. David was the tech genius. He could build anything. I was the business guy. I knew how to sell, how to manage people, how to close deals. We were unstoppable. By 2019, we'd grown the company to $47 million in annual revenue. We had offices in 3 states. I was making $840,000 a year in salary and bonuses. Karen had quit her job as a marketing consultant when Ashley was born, which was her choice. I'd never asked her to. She wanted to be a mom, and I respected that. She was incredible at it. She was involved in everything: school committees, soccer tournaments, the neighborhood book club. She made our house the place where all the kids wanted to hang out. She made our life feel like something out of a magazine. The thing about having money is that it becomes invisible after a while. You stop noticing it. You just notice when it's not there. I'd hired Jennifer about 5 years ago. She came in for an interview and absolutely knocked my socks off. Ivy League education, sharp as hell, and she had this hunger in her eyes that reminded me of myself at that age. She started as a project manager and worked her way up to senior vice president of operations in 4 years. She was brilliant with clients. She understood the product. She understood the culture we were trying to build. Karen and Jennifer became friends pretty quickly. They'd have lunch together. Karen would help Jennifer with her marriage problems, and man, there were problems. Jennifer's husband, Robert, was a piece of work. Controlling, dismissive, didn't appreciate how hard she worked. I'd listened to Jennifer cry in my office more times than I could count. I'd told her she deserved better. I'd been a good friend, a good mentor. David and I had started talking about succession planning about 18 months ago. The company was doing so well that we both wanted to step back a little. We were in our 50s. We wanted to travel, spend time with our families. David wanted to spend more time on his charitable work. I wanted to actually be present for my kids' lives instead of living in back-to-back meetings. We discussed bringing in a CEO, someone younger, hungrier, who could take the company to the next level while we stayed on as board members and strategic advisors. It seemed like a perfect transition. David and I would get some breathing room. The company would get fresh energy. Everyone wins. I never thought about Jennifer for the role, not seriously. She was young for that level of responsibility. She was brilliant, but she was still learning. I'd wanted to bring in someone from outside, someone with CEO experience at a larger company, but apparently the board had other ideas. That email had come from Marcus Webb, our board chairman. I'd known Marcus for 15 years. We played golf together. Our wives were friends. I'd thought he was solidly in my corner. "Karen," I finally said. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from underwater. "I got fired today." She set her wineglass down carefully. "What?" "Comptech. They're replacing me. They're bringing in a new CEO." Her face went pale. "Who?" I didn't answer. I couldn't say Jennifer's name out loud. Not yet. Not in a way that would make it real. "Michael," she said, using that particular tone of voice that meant she was about to say something I didn't want to hear. "Who are they bringing in?" "Jennifer," I whispered. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that breaks things. Karen's hand moved to her wineglass, but she didn't pick it up. She just stared at it, like it might suddenly explain everything. "Jennifer," she repeated, and there was something in the way she said it that made me realize she understood immediately what that meant. Not just that I'd been fired, but that I'd been replaced by someone I'd helped, by someone our family had supported and mentored and treated like a sister. She stood up without another word and walked out of the kitchen. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard our bedroom door close upstairs. I sat alone in the kitchen of my beautiful house, in my beautiful life, and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I lay in bed next to Karen, who had her back to me, and stared at the ceiling while my brain raced through every possible disaster scenario. By 3 a.m., I'd calculated that we could survive about 8 months on savings if I didn't find another job. By 4 a.m., I was convinced we'd lose the house. By 5 a.m., I was thinking about selling the Mercedes. Karen hadn't said a word to me since I told her about Jennifer. She'd come back downstairs around midnight, taken a melatonin, and gone to bed. No conversation, no plan, just silence. And somehow, that silence was worse than if she'd screamed at me. The next morning, I called David. It was 6:47 a.m., and I knew he'd be up because David was always up early. He answered on the second ring, and I could hear the concern in his voice immediately. "Michael, it's not even 7. What's wrong?" "I got fired," I said. Just like that. No preamble. "Jennifer's replacing me." There was a long pause. Then, "What?" "No. That can't be right. I didn't sign off on that. Marcus didn't mention—" "The board voted," I said. I was reading the email again, the one I'd opened approximately 400 times during the night. "It says here the vote was unanimous. You voted to fire me, David." "Michael, I swear to God, I don't know what you're talking about. I'll call Marcus right now. This is insane. You built that company." "So did you," I said quietly. "And apparently, that doesn't matter anymore." I hung up before he could respond. I didn't want to hear his explanations or his promises to fix it. Because the truth was, it didn't matter if David had voted yes or no. The vote had been unanimous. That meant he'd either voted yes, or he'd abstained, or he'd voted no, and then rolled over anyway. None of those options made me feel better. I got out of bed and went downstairs. Karen was already in the kitchen, dressed for her book club, which met every Thursday morning at Linda's house on Maple Street. She was making her famous lemon bars, the ones everyone always asked for. "You're going out?" I asked. "Linda's expecting me," she said, not looking up from the pan. "We're discussing lessons in chemistry. It's been on the schedule for 2 months. Karen, we need to talk about this. We need to make a plan." She turned to me then, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, contempt, just pure, absolute contempt. "Do you know what Linda asked me last week?" she said. "She asked if I wanted to join the women's investment club she's starting. She said she needed 5 people, and they'd each put in $50,000. I almost said yes, but I thought, no, we're fine. We have plenty of money. Michael's stable. Michael's got this covered." She turned back to her lemon bars. "I was going to say yes," she continued, "but I decided we didn't need to take the risk. I decided to trust you." I felt something crack open in my chest. "Karen, I'm going to book club," she said. "And then I'm going to call Linda and ask if that position is still available. And I'm going to put in $50,000 that we don't have yet. And maybe, just maybe, I'll be the one who saves this family instead of waiting for you to destroy it." She wrapped the lemon bars in plastic wrap with such force that I thought the pen might crack. Then she grabbed her purse and left without kissing me goodbye. I sat at the island where we'd sat the night before, in the same spot, and tried to understand how my life had become a country song. The call started around 9 a.m. First, Marcus Webb, our board chairman, trying to make nice, talking about exciting new direction and Jennifer's incredible potential, and asking if I wanted to stay on as a consultant for a transition period. I told him absolutely not. Then David called back, frantic, saying he hadn't voted to fire me, that the whole thing was a shock to him too. I didn't believe him. Then came the people from the company. My director of sales, Brandon, who I'd hired and mentored for 6 years, called to say how sorry he was and how unfair this was. But his tone was wrong. He was relieved. He was excited to work for Jennifer. I could hear it underneath the performative sympathy. By noon, I'd called a divorce attorney. I didn't even really think about it. I just looked up family law on my phone and called the first number that came up. A woman named Susan picked up, and I told her I needed to protect my assets and my family. She scheduled me for 2 p.m. that same day. I don't know why I did that. I don't know if I was panicking or if I somehow knew that Karen was going to leave me, but I did it anyway. And once I'd made the appointment, I couldn't unmake it. The thing was set in motion. I went to the appointment in a daze. Susan's office was in downtown Portland, in a professional building that smelled like coffee and desperation. She was a woman in her 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes. And she listened while I talked for 45 minutes about my marriage and my wife and the company I'd lost. "So you think she's going to divorce you?" Susan asked carefully. "I think she's going to divorce me," I said. "I think I've already lost everything, and I'm just waiting for the paperwork." Susan sat back in her chair. "Michael, I've been doing this for 32 years. What I'm hearing is that your wife is angry because she feels blindsided and scared about money. That's not a divorce. That's a marriage in crisis. You need a marriage counselor, not a family law attorney." "Can you do both?" I asked. "I can prepare documents," she said. "But I'm going to be honest with you. If you file right now, you'll spend $200,000 in legal fees fighting over assets that will both be cut in half anyway. You'll teach your children that when things get hard, you run, and you'll lose the opportunity to fix what might actually be fixable." I paid her $300 for that advice and left. I drove home in a fog. The sun was setting, and the sky was that particular shade of orange that only happens in late summer. Everything felt like a movie I was watching instead of living. I pulled into my driveway and saw Karen's Range Rover already parked there. She was home early from book club. I found her in the master bedroom packing a suitcase. "I'm going to stay at my mother's for a while," she said, not looking at me. "I need to think. I need space." "Karen, please, let's talk about this. We can talk about it when you figure out who you are without CompTech," she said. She was folding her clothes with the kind of precise, angry movements that meant she'd made a decision and was sticking to it. "Because right now, you're a ghost. You're walking around like you died, and I can't save you. I can't fix this. You have to do it yourself." She zipped the suitcase and walked past me. "How long?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. "However long it takes." And then she was gone. I stood in the empty bedroom, listening to the sound of her car backing out of the driveway, and understood that I'd hit bottom. The house was still beautiful. The furniture was still expensive. The credit score was still excellent. But I was alone in it all, and none of it meant anything anymore. I went downstairs and sat in my office in the dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there and thought about Jennifer, sitting in my office now, using my desk, making decisions about the company I'd built. I thought about David, voting to fire me without even the courtesy of a conversation. I thought about Karen, choosing her mother over me. I thought about my kids, who would find out tomorrow when they went to school, and someone's parent asked them what their dad did for a living. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Harrison, this is Kenji Nakamura. I'm the CEO of Yamada Industries. I understand you're no longer with Comptech Solutions. I'd like to talk to you about an opportunity. Can you meet me tomorrow at 8 a.m.? I stared at the message for a long time. Yamada Industries was a massive Japanese tech conglomerate. They had offices in Portland. I had no idea how Kenji Nakamura had gotten my personal cell phone number, or why he was contacting me about a job when I'd been fired less than 24 hours ago. But as I read the message again, something shifted inside me. Something small, but real. For the first time since the email arrived, I felt something other than despair. I texted back, "I'll be there." I met Kenji Nakamura at a coffee shop called The Grind on Morrison Street at 8 a.m. sharp. I knew who he was before he walked in. I'd spent the previous night researching him obsessively on my laptop. 58 years old, CEO of Yamada Industries for 12 years, Stanford graduate, reputation for being brilliant but ruthless, the kind of guy who made deals that changed entire industries. He was sitting at a corner table when I arrived, wearing an expensive charcoal suit and reading something on his phone. He looked up as I approached, and something in his expression told me he'd been watching me the entire time. "Michael Harrison," he said, standing to shake my hand. His grip was firm. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." I sat across from him, my coffee getting cold in my hands. "I have to be honest, Mr. Nakamura. I don't know why you called me. I was fired yesterday, by someone I trained. I'm not exactly a hot commodity right now." He smiled. Not a warm smile, but an intelligent one. "I know exactly why you were fired. I also know exactly what happened. And I know things about Jennifer Chen's appointment that you don't know yet. That's why I called." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "Jennifer was my operative," he said simply. "I placed her inside Comptech 18 months ago. I wanted to understand your business model, your client relationships, your proprietary processes. Jennifer provided excellent intelligence. When the time came, I recommended her to your board chairman, Marcus Webb. He was very receptive. You see, I had already acquired 43% of Comptech's shares through shell corporations. The board had no choice but to accept my recommendation." I felt the room tilt slightly. You orchestrated my firing?" "I orchestrated your removal," Kenji corrected. "There's a difference. A firing suggests incompetence. I simply needed you out of the way so that Jennifer could position the company for acquisition. In 6 months, I'll acquire the remaining shares at a significantly discounted price. Comptech will become part of Yamada Industries' North American division." I wanted to rage at him, I wanted to flip this table and storm out. But instead, I just sat there, staring at him, trying to process what he was telling me. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked quietly. "Because I want you to work for me," Kenji said. He set down his phone and clasped his hands in front of him. "I need someone who understands Comptech's culture, who knows the clients, who has the respect of the staff. Jennifer is brilliant, but she's new to leadership. She'll make mistakes. I need someone above her to catch those mistakes before they become expensive." "You want me to spy on her?" I said. "I want you to be Chief Operating Officer of Comptech's American Operations," he said, "reporting directly to me. 70% of your current salary, $588,000 per year, plus stock options in Yamada Industries. You'll have authority over all operations, and Jennifer will report to you." I sat back in my chair. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at this. A fresh start. More money than I'd thought possible. Authority over Jennifer. Revenge served ice cold. But something had changed in me between that moment and this one. No, I said. Kenji's expression didn't change. I haven't finished. I don't care, I said. You orchestrated the destruction of my marriage, my relationship with my kids, my reputation at the company I built. You used Jennifer like a pawn. You manipulated David and Marcus. And now you're offering me money to be part of the same machine that destroyed me. The answer is no. You have a wife who left you and children who will soon understand that their father lost his job, Kenji said, his voice cold. You have 8 months of savings. This offer won't come again. Then I'll figure something else out, I said. I stood up. But I won't be part of this. I walked out of the grind and sat in my car for 20 minutes, shaking. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Emergency board meeting, 2 p.m. You need to be there. They're going to announce the acquisition. I know you're not technically on the board anymore, but you need to hear this. I drove to Comtech's offices at 1:45 p.m. I hadn't been back since the email. The building felt different, smaller somehow, and hostile. The security guard at the front desk looked uncomfortable when he saw me. Mr. Harrison, I don't think you're supposed to be here. I'm here to see David Chen, I said. Tell him Michael's in the lobby. David came down 5 minutes later, and I could see the stress written all over his face. He was pale, and there was a tremor in his hands. Thank God, he said. Come on. The boardroom is upstairs. We go in 5 minutes. What's happening? I asked as we rode the elevator. Yamada Industries, David said. Kenji Nakamura approached Marcus 6 weeks ago. Apparently, he's been accumulating shares for months. He's offering to buy the company at a premium, 43% above market value. The board is going to vote on it in the next hour. What do you want to do? I asked. I don't know, David said. His voice cracked slightly. He was using Jennifer the whole time. She didn't know she was being used, Michael. She thought she was just doing a good job. And now she's going to realize that she destroyed you for nothing, that she was a puppet. We walked into the boardroom, and there she was. Jennifer, sitting at what used to be my chair, looking confident and professional. She saw me, and her face went white. Michael, she said, standing up. What are you doing here? David invited me, I said. I sat down next to David, across from Jennifer. I thought I should hear what happens next. Marcus Webb cleared his throat. Well, this is awkward. Michael, I'm not sure you have standing to be here. Let him stay, David said. He built this company. He deserves to know how it ends. For the next 40 minutes, Marcus presented Kenji's offer. The numbers were impressive. Comtech's valuation had grown substantially under Jennifer's early management. Yamada was offering to buy the entire company, keep the staff, and maintain Portland as the headquarters for North American operations. Everyone would get rich. It was a dream acquisition. Then I raised my hand. I have a question, I said. How much of Yamada's acquisition price is going to Jennifer's performance, and how much of it is due to the fact that Kenji Nakamura placed her here as a mole? The room went silent. Jennifer's face crumpled. What? That's not… Michael, what are you talking about? Kenji Nakamura just told me, 2 hours ago, that he's been orchestrating this from the beginning, I said. I looked directly at Jennifer. You weren't hired because you were the best candidate. You were hired because he bought your loyalty. He's been using Comtech to fund his acquisition of us. We're not being bought because we're valuable. We're being bought because he already owns us. That's a serious accusation, Marcus said carefully. Do you have proof? Call Kenji, I said. Ask him directly. He'll probably lie, but you can check the corporate filings. Look at the shell companies. Follow the money. It's all there. David was already on his phone, looking up the SEC filings. His face went redder with each passing second. Holy shit, he whispered. Marcus, look at this. Yamada's been acquiring shares for 18 months through… He read off a list of complicated corporate names that meant nothing to anyone but everything to the lawyers who would eventually be involved. Marcus looked like he might vomit. Jennifer looked at me, and I saw the exact moment the truth hit her. Not just that she'd been used, but that she'd helped use me. "Michael, I didn't know," she said. Her voice was very small. "I swear to God I didn't know." "I know you didn't," I said, and I meant it. "That's what makes it worse. You were a good person in a bad situation, and Kenji Nakamura used that against you." David stood up. "I'm calling our legal team. We need to stop this acquisition immediately. If Nakamura fraudulently acquired shares through misrepresentation." "You can't stop it," I said quietly. "The shares are purchased. The only thing you can do is make sure the shareholders understand exactly what happened. Make sure every employee knows that Jennifer wasn't complicit. Make sure people understand that Yamada Industries used corporate espionage to take over this company." I stood up. "And then you need to call a press conference and tell the truth. All of it. Because if you don't, Kenji will control the narrative. And he'll make sure everyone thinks Jennifer was part of the scheme to destroy me. And she wasn't. She was just a victim like I was." I walked out of the boardroom and didn't look back. The news story broke the next morning. Japanese mega corporation accused of covert acquisition strategy. The headline read, "By 2 p.m., the SEC had launched an investigation. By 4 p.m., Kenji Nakamura had canceled the acquisition and issued a statement claiming he'd done nothing illegal. But the damage was done. Comtech's reputation was damaged. Yamada Industries' reputation was damaged. And Jennifer. Jennifer was suddenly the sympathetic figure in the story, the brilliant young executive who'd been manipulated by a predatory CEO. Her name was cleared within a week. David issued a statement saying that Jennifer had been unaware of Nakamura's scheme and had performed excellently as interim CEO. The board voted unanimously to keep her in the position permanently. And Karen came home. She walked through the front door on a Friday evening, carrying the same suitcase she'd left with. I was in the kitchen, and I turned when I heard the door open. "I read the news," she said. "I heard what you did. You could have destroyed her. You could have let everyone think she was part of it, but you didn't." "She wasn't part of it," I said, "and I'm tired of destroying things." Karen set down her suitcase and walked to me. She didn't hug me, but she stood very close, and she looked me in the eyes. "I'm still angry," she said. "I'm still scared about money, but I think maybe there's something here worth saving." "I think so too," I said. We didn't get back together that night. It took months of therapy and hard conversations. But we got there. And when we did, it meant something real. It meant something earned. I started consulting work with other tech companies, eventually building a small firm that helped mid-sized companies avoid predatory acquisitions. I made less money than I used to, but I was home for dinner most nights. Jennifer and I had coffee once, about 6 months after everything happened. She apologized for taking my job. I told her it wasn't her fault. We didn't become friends again, but we became something better. We became people who understood each other's pain. David and I rebuilt our partnership differently. Less business, more friendship. We talked about selling Comtech eventually, but we did it on our terms, to a buyer we trusted, for a price we negotiated fairly. The thing I learned is that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's refusing to become like them. Kenji Nakamura disappeared from the news. I heard through the grapevine that Yamada Industries eventually removed him from the CEO position, but I never confirmed it. I didn't need to. I had my life back. That was enough.